Utah and Nevada suck. And I'm going to tell you why. Um, I took the California Zephyr, which is a famous train that goes from San Francisco to Chicago. I caught the Zephyr in Sacramento. I've been to Reno multiple times in my life, and driving there, you know you're in Reno because all of a sudden everything starts to look like shit. I don't know why it is. Like, you get out of all of the trees and everything, you get up to Nevada at the top of the fucking Sierra Nevada mountains. The yeah, Sierra Nevadas. You get up to the top, you're driving to, as soon as you cross the border into Nevada, everything goes from being really green and pretty to looking like shit. And that's just driving there. You drive to Reno, you're in Nevada when you look out the window and you go, "Oh man, everything looks like shit." It's no, I'm not attacking the people of Reno or Carson City or like when you go to Lake Tahoe, when you cross the border at South Lake Tahoe, it's still beautiful. But then when you drive over the fucking hill out of Lake Tahoe, further into Nevada towards Carson City on that side, that freeway, yeah, as soon as you're in, even though you've been in Nevada for a minute, you're just at Lake Tahoe. As soon as you get out of the vicinity of Lake Tahoe, it just looks like crap. And then you go through Nevada on this train to Utah on your way to Colorado, and overnight. You sleep overnight in going through Nevada. That's how the train ride from California to Chicago is three days. So by the time, and then we were also delayed by 6 hours. So by the time we got to Reno, it was like the middle of the night. And I was traveling during the winter, so it was snowing and everything, and it was really cold going through Nevada and Utah. But like, I wanted to experience the journey and look out the window and see what was going by. And I have to say, the journey through Nevada, like at night in Nevada, there was nothing. There was no lights, nothing lit up. There was no cities, no towns to look at. It was just pitch black out the window. The only time that light would reflect back into the cabin is when a train going the opposite direction passed us on the left. That's the only time. And then Utah, Salt Lake City was lit up, and it was like maybe 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning when we got to Salt Lake City, and I got off the train to smoke a cigarette and just look around. Like, I woke up before we got there. I barely slept on the train ride. I was on the train for almost 4 days, but um yeah, we got to Salt Lake City, and I watched the rolling hills look beautiful. Everything. I was, and then the morning we were going through the back end of Utah, going into Colorado, and it was just. I mean, there were canyons and painted hills as far as the eye could see, but it was just shit. Like, and then when you would pass a little town, it would have like a truck stop, and then like a hotel, a truck stop, maybe a McDonald's, and that was it in the little town. And then on the other side of the little town, it was just a trailer park. And then the train would stop there. You're like, holy fuck, this is a train stop. Fuck, man, where are these people going? Like, uh, and it would stop. It wouldn't stop long enough for you to get off. It just stopped long enough because it's a stop, and like they know that people are supposed to get on at certain places, but even if they don't get on at that place, they would still stop because while one train is going in one direction, another train's going in the other, so they kind of have to keep the times correct. And then you take off again. And Utah was just, it was gross. Even like Salt Lake City, it was gross, but at least it was a city, so there was lights everywhere, so there was something to look at. And then the same thing that happens when you leave California and you hit Nevada, when it goes from green to gross. Same thing happens when you leave Utah into Colorado. It's gross, gross, gross. You're in Colorado now. Look how beautiful this is, and it's like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, seriously, the moment you cross the border into the new state. And then for the rest of the ride, I got to see the Midwest. I've already seen the Midwest. It was just uh, fields and fields of hay, corn, uh, no rice. It was just it was mostly hay and corn that we were going through. Maybe it was wheat, not hay, but mostly fields of that and windmills, especially once you got to uh, Nebraska and Illinois, especially once you got to Illinois. The cool thing was is the train before we got to Chicago had to cross the Mississippi, and when you cross the Mississippi up near its like the mouth of it, like I crossed the Mississippi the first time I ever crossed the Mississippi in a vehicle, and not the plane, not a plane. Well, yeah, on a plane I crossed the Mississippi multiple times, but the first time I did it in a vehicle, I crossed from Memphis, Tennessee to East or West Memphis, Arkansas, and that was like a mile wide river at that point. In the train crossing the Mississippi, it was like you went over a stream. It wasn't even as big as the Sacramento or the American River. It was like, oh, we're crossing the Mississippi. Oh wow, that's that's kind of disappointing. And then once we got to Chicago, uh, Chicago is known for its elevated trains, and so there are tons of tracks. And the center was the Amtrak track, and it went into Union Station. But that tons of trains going to Union Station from all different directions and from the city. It's like the major hub for their public transportation. And you get there and Union Station's beautiful. It's got restaurants in it and bars and all, because so many people are passing through on trains, like going from work to whatever. And it was really cold because it was February when I went there, and I was underdressed because I was coming from California. So I was like, oh, I'll be fucking good in a sweatshirt. And nope, no, no, no. I was underdressed. It was fucking cold as fuck. My hands were freezing the entire time I was in Chicago. But I got to go and touch the Sears Tower, and I was at Union Station, and I got to see Kaminsky Park. I didn't get to see Wrigley. I wish I could have seen Wrigley, but it was way too far away from where I was at. I couldn't have walked there. And the only reason I saw Kaminsky is because the train that I left on that night to bring me to Pennsylvania uh, went by it on the elevated tracks, which being on the elevated tracks is a really interesting experience to look out the window because you get to look down on like all of the buildings and the houses and everything as you leave the city that are underneath the L train. And you're just like, fuck, man, that's where like fuck goes on. Like shit goes on down there. Like the people that live down there are not happy people right at the moment. Fuck. And then you go by Kaminsky and then the Naval Yard and then you're on your way. My favorite thing about the trip was on the way to Chicago because I'm a uh, 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 huge Mash fan. So you got to we stopped in Ottumwa, Iowa. Ottumwa. That's where Radar is from, and we stopped in Ottumwa, and we actually got to get out, and they had like a history thing, and it's named after a chief of the Native American. I can't remember the name of the tribe that was there, but Ottumwa was the chief, and we got to get out there, and then we stopped in Toledo, Ohio, which is the home of Klinger, and like the train station is right next to the Mud Hens stadium, and you just see Mud Hen like. I was like sitting there on the fucking the because we were allowed to get out of the train there too. I'm sitting there going, the Mud Hens on the walkway, smoking a cigarette, and the attendant for the train to sit there laughing, and he goes, "Yep, that's the Mud Hens," and I was like, "No, you don't understand. I like Mash. That's that's Klinger, the Toledo Mud Hens," and he's like, "Oh, yeah, a lot of people say that." He was younger than me, so he's like, "Oh, okay, now I get it." And then once we hit Pennsylvania, I woke up like as soon as we hit Pennsylvania, I was awake. Just we because we got to Pittsburgh and shit, it was like 5:30 in the morning when we got to Pittsburgh. Meaning I had to get off the train in like 30 minutes, and I'm like, okay. So we stopped in Pittsburgh. I got out, smoked a cigarette. The train is down in like a base area there in Pittsburgh, so I couldn't really see the city or really get a good look at it. Didn't really get a good look at anything when we left because kind of left on an elevated position. I don't know if we were like it was like an L train from Chicago, but it was an elevated position, and I was looking out the left of the train, and I got out in Connellville at about 6:15. I just came from California. My dumbass is thinking, oh, okay, it's a town. There must be an Uber. No Uber, no Ubers, no nothing like when I lived in California. Nope, nope. So I had to Google on my phone taxis, and I found a company, but it didn't open until 8 a.m. So I had to sit there for 2 hours, freezing my fucking ass off because it wasn't like a train station, it was like a bus stop. So the train stopped there, but it didn't. It's not like they didn't have a building where people worked in and you could buy coffee or anything. No, it just had like a overhang, and it was enclosed, and you can go in there and sit down, but there was no heat or it was just like if it was raining or snowing, you can go in there and not get rained or snowed on. It's still cold as fuck. So I had to sit there for 2 hours, and then finally the guy opened, and I was like, "Hey man, I need a ride from here to here because this is my first day in Pennsylvania. I have to get to my house to unlock the door because my bed is getting delivered that day. My TV is getting delivered that day. Fucking, I got like all these things that are happening on that day. I had blankets and like everything was supposed to be happening that day, and I had to get there before everybody else got there. Like, so, oh my, was my fridge supposed to show up that day? No, my fridge was a couple days out. Yeah, I had to spend like the first week without a refrigerator, just living off of Pizza Hut pizza. But I had to spend $150 to have some guy that runs a taxi drive all the way from Charleroi, pick me up in uh, uh Channel. Ch- God damn it! I knew the name. He came from Charleroi to fucking where I got dropped off by the train, which is hella far away from where I live, and hella far away from Charleroi, and then pick me up and drive me all the way to my house in LaBelle, Maxwell. That cost me $150, but I enjoyed the ride, staring out the window. And he was a foreigner. I think he's from the Middle East somewhere. He has a weird taste in the television show. He watches like these weird fake dramas or whatever. He's Indian or Middle Eastern of some kind. Still a nice dude. But I'm sitting there and he's driving through me through this farmland, and I played Fallout 76, and I'm seeing these houses with these stars on them, right? And I go, "Oh shit." And I go, "Hey, why are those stars on those houses?" And he goes, "I don't know, my friend. Maybe decoration." And I was like, that's not what I heard." And then he was like, "Oh, what did you hear?" And I was like, "Well, in West Virginia, stars are on the houses because it's kind of a German thing. It's to protect the house from something called a Snalligast, or a shadow ghost, a Snalligaster. I can't, I did, I'm not saying it right. I don't speak German very well." And he was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's like a ghost that shows up in the middle of the night and takes your kids." So that star they put up there, it's a German thing. They put it up there to protect their house from the ghost that steals kids in the night. And he goes, "Oh, we have something like that where I'm from." And I was like, "Oh, really?" And he was like, "Yeah, we call them hippos." And I'm like, "Oh, all right, bro. I guess you're from Egypt." Like,